You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and joining me in this endeavor into all things geek is...
the wonderful, not broken Matt Hardy, or, well, I guess handicapped Mike Dodd, because I only got one leg, but hey, it's Mike Dodd, the Birdman from thisweekingeek.net, and that's right, I'm joining Steve for this Altered Geek, and probably the next one, depending on how the recording session goes.
Yes. And so...
I'm making faces now at my cat.
You were kind of bringing up before we recorded, or started to record, about fandoms and social media.
Yeah, Steve had mentioned on the last Altered Geek talking about falling out of fandoms, and that's something that I kind of wouldn't mind touching upon, because we look at the fandoms and we interact with a lot of them, be them on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever you can find social media, and you'll find people either for your fandom or against your fandom, and sometimes they're really welcoming or they're really toxic. And I kind of want to share my experiences with that, because one fandom that I've recently gotten into, over the course of the last year or so, is the Power Rangers fandom. And I want to send shout outs to two specific people who really made this fandom really welcoming. And I've never met these people before in my life face to face. There's my buddy Cleva, who's been a fan of Twig for years. And there's another guy I met who sold me some Power Ranger stuff for my wedding anniversary. My wife got it for me, and his name's Will. And both of these people are members of a Facebook group, Power Rangers Buyers and Sellers, and another guy's member of the Canadian Power Rangers. And these are guys who said, hey, man, how's it going? I want to help you out. Let's talk. And in addition to dealing with them in a buy and sell capacity, they're just really friendly people. And I got to thinking about that. There haven't been that many fandoms that I've got into that have been super welcoming. Like, they're super elitist fandoms. And I hate to draw attention to it, because there's been some really good fan interactions there. But a lot of the ones I see right now are unfortunately really negative. That's the Star Wars fandom.
I wouldn't say even just Star Wars. I think it's been going through a cycle, because I think we had Transformers earlier in 2017, then we had Star Trek because of Discovery, how polarizingly different everything was. Even myself, I was a little toxic on it when I revamped and brought back Future Imperfect, and then I started taking more of a analytical approach to it, trying to give it its pros and cons per episode as I was reviewing it, and then to try and give it kind of equal footing on both sides, but while letting my opinion known of certain inadequacies with the show. And then moving from that, you get Star Wars, and right now the new thing, I mean, Star Wars is kind of still there. There's stuff floating out even with, Mark Hamill of saying, Disney's going to burn itself out because it's pumping out movies every 6 months. We're getting like the new reboot cartoon.
Yeah.
So it's another cycle system.
Well, it's weird because it seems to be like a niche specifically in the Star Wars fandom that I've got a problem with, so to speak. And I'm not painting all people with this brush before I proceed any further. It's the collecting side of it. Now, there's always been vintage and modern collectors, but I don't know, it just seems elitist. Unless you collect X, you suck. Or if you don't like vintage, you suck. Or if you don't like the super articulated, you suck, so to speak, like that. And I've seen some people I respect just get dragged into these really dirty arguments, and both sides have their points, and it's just really unfortunate to see these fandoms just kind of nitpick at each other. And like I said, you could say this about any fandom, but Star Wars recently, I said, after how I would say how divisive The Last Jedi was, whether you loved it or hated it, people just got right into each other, and it got ugly.
Well, I think it's because of what they did with the film. I think it's because, and I think the best way of describing this film, and I think Mike Booth Ninja Powers brought this up, but is where Luke gets handed the lightsaber and then just chucks it over his shoulder And that's pretty much what the whole movie did, was take everything you knew about Star Wars and chuck it over its shoulder.
Yeah, it definitely, honestly, the Last Jedi felt more like the plot to one of the Star Wars video games or like someone's tabletop role-playing game. It wasn't traditional Star Wars, that's for sure. And I'm one of the biggest Star Wars fans you'll ever meet. I've read so much of the expanded universe, it's enough to make you sick. I have almost every Star Wars West End Games book ever published.
I enjoyed parts of the film. I enjoyed when Luke was in it. I didn't particularly enjoy certain aspects of what they did to Luke, or things that they omitted from the film, such as the Han grieving scene or the fact that they killed him off. But and there were plot lines in the film that were just kind of pointless overall, like the whole going to the rich bar scene.
Yeah, there was some weirdness in The Last Jedi, you could definitely say that.
And they were peddling a love story with Finn, and they were peddling, some kind of a weird thing between Rey and Kylo, and then I don't know. There was a lot of things in it that just were kind of off-putting, and I think it's because it's the first original story we've gotten in Star Wars, while kind of neglecting a lot of other things and not really looking to connect it too much. Because when we got The Force Awakens, it was a rehash of A New Hope.
And this one definitely was. It had the element where the Empire kicks our ass. You could definitely say that. But we'll see what happens whenever the next movie comes out, which it doesn't even have a name yet. But yeah, I mean, that one particular subset of fans just kind of, it made Star Wars feel icky for me, and I wasn't particularly happy with it. And you could look to other fandoms that seem really welcoming at the time, and it almost always seems to center around movies. I'm going to go back to my Power Rangers example for a second. That's a fandom that seems fairly welcoming, except when the new movie came out. If you liked it, you got shit on. I thought it was cool. It honestly got me invested in the property again.
See,
man, this is cool.
There's ups and downs to that. There's and I always go back to Transformers for this. There's aspects where a new rebooted attempt revitalized the franchise. Then there's elements, such as like Beast Wars. You look at the original Transformers, it had died off years before. And then they come out with Beast Wars, and it was a totally different aesthetic, totally different concept, different everything. And then they connected it, and then they started kind of going back to the old school formula because it had been brought back. And then it started to taper off, and then they made the film. And then from then on, it's been a conversation between the films and the animated series, where the films have largely been terrible, but they're just stupid action movies, which are polarizing on their own. And then you look at things like Ghostbusters.
I was just about to bring that up. And
it was to revitalize the franchise, and it tanked. And then you look at, the superhero movies. One side of the spectrum you have hits, and on the other side you have things that just had a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about Ghostbusters, honestly, the new movie once again got me reinvested in the franchise. I still have all my Ghostbusters figures. I have the new Proton pack. I even have the Funko Pop, the new Ecto-1 with Holtzman in it. And that was a bitch to find, by the way.
See, I think that movie would have done better had they actually had the original cast involved, more than just a cameo, and had them as an actual passing of the torch, much like Extreme Ghostbusters.
Yeah, if it hadn't been a reboot, if it had been maybe alternate universe, and you somehow connected the original characters.
Or even 20, 30 years later from the original universe. And then,
just have it be shared universe. Why not?
And then have them, passing the baton, and, Egon, they could have just had died in the line of battle. And so the other guys had kind of hung up the stuff for a while, and then came back, and then decided to train this new group, and then essentially have one last, ultimate battle with them, and then they go on and retire, and then you have the new crew take over.
Yeah, you see, something like that would very much have worked, but because of the way the script was written, and I guess it had a whole host of problems. Even the director, Paul Feig, had said there were problems. It didn't turn out the way that we wanted to, and it sucks, but we're supposed to get a new animated Ghostbusters. There's the new animated Ghostbusters TV show, which I think comes out this year.
I think
or
so.
Next.
I think
so that's something to look forward to.
And in the Power Rangers movie, I get they were trying to do their own thing. They were trying to go completely 100% on their own original to Saban, without any footage from the from China. And I didn't like the Zords. I didn't like Goldar. I didn't really care for a lot of it overall. A lot of the changes that they made, mostly aesthetics. The story wasn't terrible. It was more relatable than the original one, where they all looked like they were 25.
I would have preferred more action, a little less character development, but it was the beginning of a franchise, which may never happen, unfortunately.
And see, I kind of think that they kind of missed the boat on it too. Like, there's a point. And I think this is kind of where Transformers, because even that got canceled recently. They put the brakes on Transformers 6, 7, and 8 after Bumblebee. They're rebooting because they want to do a shared universe with G.I. Joe, Mask, and
Micronauts or something?
Micronauts, Transformers eventually, and connect it all together. But the thing is I think people are tired of things getting so dramatically changed. When they're revitalizing a franchise, like there's either do the thing that the television universe is doing, where they continue a TV show from 20, 30 years ago with the original cast and kind of have this like more natural passing of the torch with some of the old cast involved, or completely redo it, but not. I wouldn't say do the like J.J. Abrams thing of like, oh, let's rehash Kirk and Spock again and then just redo everything and give it a shinier look. No, what I'm saying is like there's this kind of fine line that you almost have to walk. Like, yes, they should have their own ability to choose and to change things. But I think that there's like a difference between changing things and having like polarizing changes.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a delicate balance. I mean, one franchise that I think did a delicate balance right of giving it a fresh look yet staying true to what it was, and I don't think you're going to see this coming, is My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Now, that's a fandom that, pardon me, a lot of people give a lot of crap to, and some of it rightly so, and I'm a brony myself. I've got a brony tattoo. Sue me. But that brought a set of fresh ideas with Lauren Faust as the showrunner for a number of years. I don't know whether she still is. I actually haven't watched Pony since season 4. And I think they're on season 8 now. So, yay. But that's a show that got it right. Managed to rehash and yet give us something new and have it be original. Have characters like Pinkie Pie be something completely different.
I'll do you one
still
better.
The same fun. Okay, what do you got?
Voltron.
Yes, Legendary Defender. Very much different from the original, yet still recognizable as what it was.
And I know we're getting a new She-Ra this year.
I'm looking forward to that.
Which would be the first time since the 80s. And then, we had Star Wars Rebels.
Which was a fantastic take.
Did you watch the finale?
Not yet. I've watched the first 3 seasons.
I've been dying to talk to somebody about the finale. Nobody's seen it yet, though. It's epic, and it lends itself to more stories with some certain beloved characters without giving anything away. But it definitely lends to something that could very well be picked up post Return of the Jedi.
Which hopefully they'll do in like a TV movie or something.
Which they could totally do and have Hamill reprise Luke Skywalker in that case.
Which would be pretty cool. Or to get that guy who sounds like him from all the Star Wars video games anyway.
Well, honestly, I would love to have Hamill return.
He'd do it.
Well, he did the Forces of Destiny animated clip with where he played young Luke with Yoda on his back, and it had Frank Oz doing the voice in that too. So,
oh, that's cool.
And it was supposed to be during the time of Empire Strikes Back when he's training on Dagobah.
One of the things that I wanted to mention during this conversation, and this kind of was the crux of it, we're talking about falling out of fandoms and how things have changed to either revitalize a franchise or to perhaps lose the interest in it. I want to talk about social media for a few minutes. We talked about this on our last Future Imperfect, how sides are so divisive on Facebook and Twitter right now. And with a certain scandal going on with Cambridge Analytica leaking Facebook data and whatnot, whatever, Facebook is becoming a very toxic place.
It's been a toxic place.
Yeah. And Twitter is always has been a toxic place.
Well, I wouldn't say always has been.
It just seems like when the Twitter trolls come out, they come out in force. The
last 6 years it's been since we did our bullying episode on Geekcast Radio.
Yeah.
That's about the around that point was where it started to really ramp up.
And I'm seeing people, I saw the hashtag pop up on Twitter, delete Facebook. And I'm not saying I'm going to leave Facebook because I use it for a lot of planning. That's how I keep in touch with my friends and family. It's just become mentally draining. And I'd never thought it would say it, because I remember Facebook used to bring me so much joy because I would connect with people I hadn't seen in a while. It was cool seeing their lives. But I see these memes occasionally pop up, how Facebook is humble bragging, presenting your life as it really isn't. Like saying, oh, I'm doing so wonderful, when really you're having a really bad, depressing day, or something really bad has happened to you, or you're showing pictures of your food, yet you're eating from the dollar menu at McDonald's, so to speak, and you're presenting this wonderful thing. And then on Twitter, endless at wars, back and forth, the hashtag wars.
Yeah.
It gets ridiculous. And people have done social media breaks. I've had people say, hey guys, I'm disconnecting for like a week or 2 weeks, or I'm going to delete my account. You want to stay in touch? Here's how to do it. And I'll openly admit this here on Alter Geek. I'm afraid to do that. I am terrified if I delete my Facebook or Twitter, I disappear as a person. And that's a weird thing to say.
I don't think you disappear as a person. I think it gives you the chance to reinvent yourself without that.
But your data is still out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can let people know you're still out there, but I think that if you let people know in a post, hey, look, I'm going to take a little, siesta from this. I need a mental drain, because like I've done that with Facebook. I find Facebook, a lot of the stuff, like my own mom posted a news article about the Chinese space station.
Floating back down. It was going to hit Ohio or something?
No, it's going to hit southern part of Michigan.
Okay.
Where, I'm in Michigan, so it's it's kind of interest. But I mean, there's really nothing you can do about it. If it's gonna hit, it's gonna hit. Like, but getting worried about something that you have no control over is one of those things that social media just ramps up to the nth degree.
Well, one of the things about social media, and I guess it
can be a good tool and it can be a destructive tool depending on how it's wielded.
One of the things I've noticed, especially in the wake of recent violence, is obviously you get certain conversations started. And these conversations inevitably go one of two ways, very far left or very far right. And as we said on Future Imperfect, neither side is wrong. Both sides have good points, but the conversation gets lost in the shouting match that inevitably starts. And it's getting a little tiring, especially when you see it from the same 5 people. And I think that's where social media is kind of getting to me, is there are these people, I thought they were one thing and now I'm seeing they're another, but these are not the people that I once knew. And I guess that's the thing with social media, you choose how you present yourself. And I like to think on social media, I've always portrayed myself as a very open-minded person. I'm always willing to listen. Am I kind of a douchebag at sometimes? Yeah, but I'm always a giant nerd. You can always count on that.
Yeah, and I think that I've kind of done the same thing. Like when I first started social media, I was just reaching out to people that had like similar interests, and then eventually I was one of those toxic fools that were sitting there purposely trying to start a Twitter fight for no reason. Like it was something to do throughout the day. And I mean, yeah, I was using my opinion, but still, it wasn't warranted. And then now I'm of the mind that I just don't want to deal with it. I don't have time to be sitting there worrying about something that's either not going to affect me personally or affect people in the grand scheme of things. Like it's a fictional thing, or if it's the fact that everybody's shouting into the same echo chamber.
Yeah, it's. I've been involved in very few Twitter fights. I've been the victim.
I've been on that side too.
And that's never a pleasant time. Never a fun time. But I don't know. It's fascinating to see that I never thought I'd get burned out on social media. I've always been such a proponent for it. Because without social media, and I probably haven't told this story too often, but I'll share it with the listeners of Altered Geek. If it wasn't for social media, I never would have found out that my mom died. I never would have found out my grandmother died. Because when my grandmother died, we hadn't spoken in a couple of years. And I got contacted by an insurance agent saying, hey, are you the son? I'm her adoptive son of my grandmother, Marie Dodd. And I'm thinking, yes, why? I'm sorry to tell you this, but your mom died. I'm like, what? You're full of shit. So I had to call this woman on the phone and verify that I'm who I say I am, that my grandmother had passed away. And I had to find out via Facebook. And then my real mom this past January passed away of pneumonia while she was in the hospital. And we'd just been talking when I was in the hospital for my leg amputation around Christmas time. We had just been talking, and I had been talking to my aunt. And she had told me that my mom had passed away once again over Facebook Messenger. And then we started talking on the phone. So without Facebook, I would not know about these major events in my life, because my aunt would not necessarily have known what my email address is or even had my phone number, because we had just recently started talking. So that powerful connection, I guess that's why I feel such a loyalty to Facebook, because it has been such a part of my life. If it wasn't for Facebook, maybe me and Blair, my wife, wouldn't be together, because we talked on Messenger, we talked on Facebook all the time.
Now, see, and that's one of the pluses of it. I have kind of a plus story on this side too, and that's I used to frequent a lot of the messenger programs. I used to frequent forums and other websites before Geekcast Radio. And then when Geekcast Radio was started, I prior to that, I had started Twitter. I'd had a Facebook, I didn't do anything with it. It was just kind of there. And even now, I for a while I was posting on it. I haven't posted really anything of substance in the last 5 years on it, at least. Occasionally I'll post something. I've not even posted. I'm more so a lurker, and then I'll comment if I see something that's worth my interest. But I just the thing with Geekcast Radio is it wouldn't be around if we didn't have Twitter, because Twitter was how I learned of This Week in Geek. That was how I met you. I met Blanchard through the same way. And then I've met everybody else that's been on Geekcast Radio or friends of Geekcast Radio over the years through Twitter. And so without that particular platform, none of this would be here. I mean, yeah, I'm sure I would have some of these things. Did I have the idea for Movie Week in Review before Geekcast Radio, before I even knew Blanchard? Yes. Did I have All Things Transformers before that? Yes. Would I have any of these other shows? I have no idea. But the funny thing is that I enjoy Twitter more. I just have to put on more filters. And honestly, like if I start seeing a bunch of stuff I just don't want to see anymore, I just start unfollowing people, because then I'm filtering out myself what I don't want to see.
I mean, I'm the way with Facebook. I'm really glad Facebook introduced the option to unfollow people. For Twitter, my timeline is filled with a lot of role play news, a lot of geeky stuff, a couple of friends that I follow.
I have a lot of news sources.
I have a lot of friends in the adult industry, so I get to see some pretty naked ladies every now and again. And I get a lot of geeky trivia that way, and a lot of gaming stuff, because that's my main sphere, is like gaming news. But I don't know. It's just like there are days I question, is it still worth it? But for the interactions I've had with fans, there's been some really good people. And if it wasn't for Twitter, I would not have been able to receive the help that I've gotten in the past, especially with all my medical emergencies that have popped up in the last year. If it wasn't for social media, I would not have been able to raise the money by selling my stuff for my wheelchair, which, by the way, was successful. So thank you to everybody who bought my stuff. I now have a wheelchair. And the Birdman is mobile again, just waiting on a cushion. But
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, social media can accomplish wonderful things. And that's something else I want to talk about too. Not just myself being helped, but you see people that do these GoFundMes for, hey, I'm having kidney dialysis, or my son or daughter's in the hospital. And you see these people raise tens of thousands of dollars.
Well,
and it's amazing.
Or even natural disaster people that...
Oh, yeah.
Where, I mean, when people come together in a form of unity, and this episode is actually, funny enough, almost a continuation of Future Perfect, which come out at separate times. It's wonderful when you see people join together in unity for a common cause, and show that they can put aside the BS of everything that just doesn't matter, to do the right thing. And then at the same time, the destructive part about social media is it creates not only discord between people picking a side or a faction, as it were, if you're relating to a fictional term, because there's always two sides at least. You also have the constant media barrage or visual barrage where your brain never actually gets its time to sit and unwind. And so therefore you're creating unneeded processes in your brain that cause other issues with, behavioral issues or mental issues that, can be managed just simply by unplugging, which I've had to do from time to time because of just, it's too much.
Yeah, I mean, there are times there'll be certain hashtags I'll follow, and there's a hashtag I've been following recently, and I'm going to have to just unplug and just, you know what, I'm not going to check that hashtag anymore. I'm going to walk away because it's not doing me any good.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Because I've been following it too. I'm not going to bring up names of anything because I don't want to give it any kind of press. But I know exactly what you're talking about because I wanted to dig into it.
Just Jesus.
Yes. But yeah, so I mean, it's got its ups and downs, but I've actually, that's why I use TweetDeck, the web TweetDeck, because then I can hide hashtags from my multiple accounts, and I don't see them go across my timeline, which makes it nice because
I may have to start doing that.
I even clear out when I see certain political posts of moronic people. I'll just leave it at that.
We'll just leave it at that.
So I think that's all I've got on this anyway. Than I mean, I guess I could bring up the comments we got in the last episode, which is the falling out of fandoms. Brad says that as far as fandoms, he says The Last Jedi did it for me. Fandoms are destroying themselves where elitist fanboys think something should be done their way or not at all.
Yep, Brad's got a point.
I wonder if after hearing about episode 8 and watching by other means, did you enjoy it, or because I didn't go see it the normal way? He says, did you enjoy it or agree with the post you'd seen beforehand? Funny enough, with that film, I'd sought out spoilers on Reddit.
Same here.
So I actually watched all of the footage that was going to be divisive later, particularly pertaining to Luke. So I already knew what was going to happen. So I was prepping my mind for it so I wouldn't have this WTF moment while watching it, which is what I did during The Force Awakens with Han being killed. So I knew what was going to happen before it happened, and it helped me to cope with the movie and to kind of put the pieces together beforehand and not have as big of an issue with it. That doesn't work for everyone. That's just my method. Some people like Optimus Solo find that a bit ridiculous. He's like, you're ruining it. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm the type that would read the end of a book and then go back and read the whole book.
Yeah, same here. I'm the exact same way.
So, but then I could put the pieces together better. So anyways, he says, generally since I've left all fan groups online since, I was excited for Marvel films up until Avengers since it's the same formula. I haven't seen one in theaters since Ultron. I can like the films I like and don't need 100 likes on social media that agree with me, and I don't need to hear from a troll because he disagrees.
Yeah, when you get the angry trolls who are just looking to start a fight, that doesn't add anything to the conversation. Although, Brad, if you're out there, I think you should check out Thor Ragnarok and Ant-Man. I think you'd have fun with those ones.
Those are definitely fun films. I love Thor Ragnarok. We just did our GCRN awards, and that one won, I think, in its category.
Good pick. Very good pick.
I think. But anyways, that's one of my favorite Marvel films of all time was Ragnarok. It was awesome.
One thing, actually a little bit of trivia for you. The first movie I saw when I was in the hospital, they gave me a day pass so I could leave the hospital for the day, was Star Wars The Last Jedi. It was the first time I'd ever took a wheelchair taxi, and it was the first time I'd ever transferred out in the real world on my own. When you transfer from a chair to a wheelchair, it's called a transfer. And it was the first time I ever did it by myself, and I was actually rather proud of myself. My physiotherapist was incredibly impressed with me. So Star Wars is always going to hold a special point in my heart because it was the first movie I saw independently. So there's that. Any other feedback we got?
Not on that particular episode.
All right, then. So as always, we do welcome your feedback. We do read each and every piece of it, and we always want to interact with you across our various social media channels. With Steve, if they want to get a hold of us, they can do that by...
they can go to the website, either Geekcast Radio or Altered Geek. They can also find it on Facebook at Altered Geek or Twitter at Altered Geek. My Twitter is at SCP21, and yours is, sir?
If you want to find me online, you can find me at BirdmanDodd. That's my personal Twitter. Or if you want to reach out to This Week in Geek, it is just simply at This Week in Geek. That is run primarily by my producer, Alex. And once again, we do respond to each and every piece of feedback. We do appreciate you guys taking the time out of your almost certainly busy days, be it on your commute to work, hanging out in your office while you clean, or doing whatever. Thank you for your patronage, and thank you for being listeners.
Yes, thank you. So until next time, get altered geeky
with the Altered Geeks. Woo!